So welcome everybody, and thank you so much for attending our webinar today. We have a whole webinar series going on. We have a few really cool ones coming up. Actually, Joanna, you should probably get the link to the next two webinars ready at some point so that we could share it with everybody, right? We have an award-winning book author, what is it? QBQ, question behind the question. So that one's happening, a 45-minute only webinar. And the other one is we have Crystal Davis that will be on the call and doing another webinar. So thank you so much for joining. Today's webinar is very, very specific to our productivity leader training, the results that people have achieved, but also we are really disrupting the market right now in terms of lean training. We are reducing the amount of in-class time. Yes, I did say reducing. And we'll sort of show you sort of the science behind it and why we're doing it and what the benefit is as we go along. So basically, our mission, this is directly in line with our mission. So our mission is to deliver practical solutions to as many organizations as possible. That is our mission, and that is exactly in line with why we've disrupted the lean training market at this stage in the Great Game. So I'm going to start by asking a poll. So what is your experience with lean? I just want to get a general understanding of your experience with lean so far. All right, let's see. All right, so most of you have voted. That's awesome. So that's great. It's a great audience to speak to then. 67% none. I'm excited to learn more today. 22% I've heard of it but don't use it. And 11% I use lean in the workplace but don't have a certification. All right, so there we go. We don't have anyone with a certification on the call. So basically, lean, I'll explain what lean is in a bit, but I just want to talk about why we've changed our format, like our Greenbelt format. There's someone coming into the office again, sorry. So we have a partnership right now established with Karen Ross, who just recently won the Shingo Prize for her book, The Toyota Way to Service Excellence. And Karen Ross's philosophy is a lot about learn by doing. So Karen is a expert in practical application of lean, and you know, when we set out to do our lean training course, we had a 5-day course just like everybody else, and we forced you guys out of your workplaces, which is not a terrible thing, right? You like to get out of work and go on PD, but for those managers out there who send their staff, or those CEOs who send their managers, you don't just want someone to go on a PD mission and come back smiling with a few books and, you know, gratitude, really. You want that, and you also want them to make improvements in your workplace. So Karen very much, you know, challenged our thinking as part of our partnership and said, really, you need to think about, you know, why would you pull people out of their workplace for 5 days to help them make improvements in their workplace? And, you know, Karen was bang on. So we did a study of our graduating students in the past, and then we got together with Karen and then figured out how do we actually streamline this. So we tried this 1.5-day method. We've run about 3 sessions so far, and the feedback is simply amazing. So we'll just talk about that in the next slide. This is actually, Joanna will just put this blog post up because I've written a lot about this in detail, about what wasn't working with our current lean training system. So, you know, the blog post is very authentic and, you know, very true. It's all about, you know, we had these awesome metrics. So the people who actually graduated from our course, our 5-day course, did accomplish fantastic results, and you'll see that soon. But those are our vanity metrics, right? We had a very high percentage of people who didn't graduate from our course. And it's really because you come to professional development and then you go back to your workplace and you have a little bit of touch-base time, but if you don't have someone supporting you right through the doing your project, understanding how to apply the tools in your workplace, you can't actually make it happen. So at some point, you guys can take a look at the blog post because it talks in detail about the difference between what most lean training programs do and what we do and how we are different. Go to the next slide, Joanna. So in terms of the success that our training program has received so far, is we've been featured in lots of different newspapers, and we even got a recent interview on CBC Morning North in Northern Ontario, and Karen, and you can listen to that on our website. So you could go to the our website, yourpace.ca/news, to take a look at that. But just to establish some legitimacy of, we have accomplished some serious results with our training. So some of the companies that we work with, and I know there's a few mental health folk on the call, and Aaron from Monarch also. So we work with quite a few community service and healthcare organizations. We actually have all the hospitals down the Highway 11 corridor that are our clients that are receiving ongoing coaching from us. And the next slide, I think, will show some of our clients in the manufacturing industrial sector. So those are the two sectors that we actually have clients in who've received training from us. So for those of you who, because 67% of you have no experience about lean and you're sort of curious, really what is lean about? And it is quite simple, actually. You don't even need to come to our day-and-a-half course. This is not a sales pitch at all. Like you can certainly, change your thinking and get there. The day-and-a-half, what it does is it immerses you. So the first day, actually, you're forced into this, I will say, quote-unquote, work scenario that immerses you into this session that forces the lean concept into you. So if you come to the session, you'll understand you'll be doing the same job the whole day, and you will try to do different improvements, and you will understand why your current method of improvement doesn't actually work and why you need a new method of improvement. So it's very much an intrinsic learning process. But let's just talk about what lean is first of all, right? It is an approach to systematically eliminating waste. And what we mean by systematically eliminating waste. So I'll use the example of a colleague of mine recently. His mom's in the hospital, and doctors are trying her on different medications. But there was one doctor that said, oh, you know what, we're going to change this med, and then we're going to change this time and see how that works. Now, that was two changes that someone made, and you wouldn't know which change actually resulted in which improvement, right? So systematically eliminating waste is really about reducing and making improvements one thing at a time as you go along. And when you systematically eliminate waste, right, you're able to actually understand which change resulted in which improvement. So lean, quite simply, is reducing the number of steps that are not necessary to a process. So you can actually eliminate a 6-step process and make it a 3-step process. And you might sort of challenge me right now on the phone, and I challenged my teachers the same way when I first learned lean, about really, how could you really do that? Like, do you not think we know what we're doing? Absolutely, I do know you know what you're doing. It's just a really different way of looking at things. So when you come to the course, you'll be able to see how you can take an existing process and do more with the same resources you've applied to the existing processes. And I don't want you to just take our word for it, because you have to see some case studies in action. So towards the end of the presentation, we'll actually show you a full range of case studies that exist. They're on our website, and you can see, and it's not actually case studies that we have implemented even. We're actually getting our students to showcase their case studies. So it's not us experts doing this work and making these magical changes happen. It's actually people like you, right, who are interested in making a change, who are interested in professional development, that are going through with our help, right, or we'll be there in the workplace with you and helping your organizations do more with the same. So, you know, Erin, I hear you about the being short-staffed, right? So when you're talking about being short-staffed, yeah, it's you know, it hurts, but maybe it allows you to be a little bit more innovative and do things a little differently, and think about how you could do things differently instead of just getting more bodies, more people to do the work, right? Go to the next one. So the average return on investment in the human services sector, so the mental health, the school services, the hospital sector. So if somebody comes to our course, the average return on investment is about 5 times in the human services sector, and this is with real case studies, so it's not made up data at all, because we are a, you know, excellence consulting firm. In the mining, manufacturing, industrial sector, it's a really high return on investment. It's a 20 times return on investment for the first project for the first year. So these are all just, this data is only based for the first project that someone completes. And so you can imagine, because people just continue doing projects as they go along, right, there is a lot more savings. So this is one of those courses that you'll send someone on, or you'll come and you can easily show a business case, right? There's a real business case for, yeah, like if I go to this course, I'm actually going to make an improvement in my workplace that's going to make a difference long term. That's what this is about. So our new format is, as I said, is only a day and a half in class, and the first day is an immersion, and then it's followed up by personalized coaching in your workplace. And when we say personalized coaching in your workplace, you know, I can hear someone saying, "Oh, yeah," like when we call them, right? Initially, you're like, "Oh, here's the lean coach," right? Like, and then they answer the phone and they go, "I haven't had time to work on my project," and they just have this like big heavy sigh, right? And really, I think if you go to the next slide, Joanna, is that the personalized coaching bit that's coming up? Yeah, so basically, when we make the calls and chat with you, those are power calls. Those are, you know, 10 to 15-minute calls, and we're only calling you to help you build the discipline of lean thinking. Because lean is not about the tools so much as it is about the thinking. We absolutely help you use the tools, and we have a point-based system to help you use the tools, but we call you and we say, "Okay, well, tell me what's going on." And someone would say, "Well, you know, this really terrible thing happened, and here's what's going on." And we'll say, "Okay, well, does that happen often? Like, are these problems happening often?" "Well, yeah, I think so." And then we'll say, you know, do something simple, like just track the data on the side of your desk, right, on a piece of paper. And so we don't make it complicated. We make it rather simple for them. Sometimes people have real big problems that they're like, "Yeah, I really want to like define this problem a little bit better," or "I really want to take on this project," and that kind of stuff. But we always start with the problem that you're trying to solve. And I know there are people on the call right now, because we've heard it all before, right? Is that, "Well, I don't like talking about problems. I like talking about opportunities for change." And absolutely, every problem is an opportunity for change. We don't disagree with it. But, you know, the old adage, right? Don't fix what ain't broken. So you need to know how to measure and demonstrate that something is broken in order to be able to fix it. So that's really what we do here is help you use the tools in your workplace. We help you understand the problem you're trying to solve with a point-based graduation system to build a habit of consistently using lean tools. So I'll give you guys an example of a problem that starts out in one place and then ends up in another. There's not a slide for this, but I'll just give you a recent example. So I have this individual they are in the finance division of a long-term care home. And, you know, they come to me and they say, oh, yeah, my project is to reduce the amount of time it takes to post jobs when it comes to people calling off sick, like, you know, long-term sickness. And so I say, okay, so you want to reduce that time? And I said, so what's that, you know, what's the problem you're trying to solve? And they say, well, it's going to reduce the number of, you know, different care providers touching an individual patient, because in the long-term care space, understandably, you don't want to have way too many care providers providing care to the same individual. You kind of want to have some consistency of care. So he says, it's going to improve my consistency of care metric. So I said, okay, so how do you know that it's going to improve your consistency of care metric? How can you prove that? And then he ponders a bit and he says, well, I can't actually prove that. And I said, okay, so, you know, why are you looking to reduce the time to advertise if you can't actually make the correlation there? And he says, well, because it's just easy for me to measure how to reduce time, right? And it's just like, and so when you talk to your coach and you talk through your problem with your coach is not there to just support you in picking an easy project to implement so you could get your certificate. It's more of a meaningful problem to fix so you could get, you know, so you could get to graduation. So I helped him rethink it, and I said, you know, how could we look at this differently? Like, how could we actually know that people calling off sick is actually impacting, you know, the consistency of care? How can we make the correlation? And then we looked at the problem differently, and we started gathering data around, you know, for every person that called in sick, how many people are replacing that sick person's shift, right? So the problem changed. And so instead of saying, I want to hire someone, sure, that might contribute to helping the situation out, the problem changed to, we want to reduce the number of people who replace that one person that ends up getting sick. So in some cases, you had 40 people replacing that one person that called in sick. So you can imagine what that would do for the consistency of care numbers, right? So what we do is we really help you hone in on defining a problem really clearly with metrics. That's what Lean is about. You really need to look at it with objective facts and figures. We have these buttons, we have these PACE buttons, and one of the buttons say, in God we trust, all others bring data. So I think if you guys type something into the question window right now, we will actually mail you a PACE button. What do you think, Joanna? We'll do a little draw for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll actually mail you a PACE button that says, in God we trust, all others bring data. So we'll see who wins that one. You can pick whoever wins that one, Joanna. All right?
Sure. If anybody's interested, feel free to just leave a little note in the chat window, and I'm happy to send you one.
Awesome.
Okay.
Woohoo, Erin says. We might have to get Erin one. We'll just deliver it. She's just up the street, really. And so a lot of, in the class, there's a lot of practical application of the tools. Oh, Linda says she would like one too. We'll send Linda one as well. Whoever wants to type in, I think we have a few buttons. We'll send you a few different buttons. We'll mail them to you. No cost. Yeah. All right. So there's lots of, there's a few other people. I'm not going to pay attention to you now. I'm going to pay attention to the slide deck. How about that? So
I'll monitor who's interested.
Okay, that sounds great, Joanna. I appreciate it. So when you're in class, there's a lot of quick reviews of the tools. There's 21 different tools that we're teaching you in a really fun environment. So you're actually going through the simulated work environment. There's Lego being used, and when we actually, so if you call us into your workplace, we'll actually create a simulation based on your work environment, based on a process that speaks to your work environment. We have we have games that we can simulate in different industries, and really we have a creative team that does that for us. So we're happy to come in and do that specifically for you. And there's a lot of self-realization. So the best way for you to learn is to really realize the need for the change through yourself. So there's a lot of teaching leaders to be more aware of their current problem-solving style and how to make the mental shift. So actually, we don't have the testimonial from Allison here, but I got a really fantastic testimonial. Maybe you can prep it up in if you can find it in the meantime, Joanna, and then you can read it for us when you find it. Oh, actually, you can't because you're on this computer, right? You're doing the screen. You might find it later. That's okay. But there's a really cool testimonial from.
Read it out, but I won't be able to navigate through.
Yeah, no problem, Jenna. But there's a really cool testimonial from one of the leaders about how, you know, it's provided more self-awareness in terms of their own problem-solving style, and just created more discipline and structure in their organization. So it's not just us saying that. There's a huge mental shift that happens, and that is another reason for us to do the coaching in your workplace. So obviously we're not driving to your workplace. These are short 10 to 15-minute power sessions. We actually currently don't have a limit on how many sessions we're delivering in your workplace, simply because we are still in an assessment mode. So we've only delivered 3 courses with this. So currently we're just sort of giving you whatever you need to get you to a certain point, and we're assessing it so that our coaches then know what a ballpark set of coaching sessions would be in your workplace. So if you sign up now, you will actually get some essentially unlimited sessions for as much as you need to get you to graduation at the end of the day, right? What is the next slide? What do we have in the next slide? And this is the only way to really create long-term sustainable change in thinking. So being a lean thinker is a lot about getting rid of your personal biases and actually thinking about how you make long-term sustainable change, and how you actually use data and facts to help make decisions and help drive decisions into the future. Who's the next one? What's our next slide? Oh, and when you actually join one of our courses, you are part of a larger community of practice. So you will be, we have a Yammer site, which is kind of like a Facebook for business. It looks very much like Facebook. You can see little previews there. You can share all your files on there. Your peers that attend the course with you will be part of a personal group where you can share your files with them. And you now have access to about 1,000 other productivity leaders who are also sharing best practices and tools with each other, so on and so forth. So you're not alone when you go through graduation. You have a lot of people helping each other out. And the next slide. So these are some of our recent successes. So Dana Corsi, completed in her first project. She had about $10,000 in savings annually for reducing wait times from 10.6 ALC days to 0, which was really impressive. And I think another example of a case study in the industrial sector is George from North Bay. He's the production flow manager, and he, in his particular project, he did a 46% improvement. But I recently met up with George and Ed in North Bay. An interesting story. They've implemented, if you go to our YouTube channel, you should see some free webinars available for the Huddle boards, and are pre-recorded webinars. And they actually implemented a Huddle board in their organization, and amazingly enough, with a really simple idea, they actually helped eliminate 60 tons of plastic from going into the ground. So a big environmental savings there, and of course cost and quality savings that goes along with that as well. But it's amazing what you can do when you go lean and you start engaging your workforce and use 100% of your workforce to make 100% of your changes. So that is actually, if you just Google Partners in Achieving Change Excellence on YouTube, please go subscribe to our channel. I think we might have 3 subscribers. It would be nice to have more than 3 subscribers. We have a ton of videos on there. Maybe we have 7 by now. I don't know. But we don't have very many. Maybe all of the employees should subscribe. Hey, Joanna, that's something to think about. So go subscribe to our YouTube channel, because every time we have, so if you didn't attend a live webinar, because in a live webinar you can ask questions and so on and so forth. If you didn't attend live, you could actually, you know, see a pre-recorded version if that one is authorized. There is a webinar coming up with, Joanna, who's the webinar with right now for the QBQ?
Kristen Lindeen.
Yeah, Kristen Lindeen. So she is the person that runs the QBQ franchise, which is Question Behind the Question, I think it's called, and it's all about personal accountability. So there's a personal accountability webinar coming up that will not be available at all in a recorded format. It's a one-time only 45-minute live webinar. Do you have the URL somewhere, Joanna? I don't know if you do. If you do, or is it just europace.ca/events?
I can get it.
Okay, so maybe Joanna will send you the link after this. I think there is some room available in that webinar so far. We have the GoToMeeting account that gives us 101 attendees, so that's our limit for attendees right now, is 101. So in that webinar, there is a little bit of room remaining. And we know that there's some organizations that are sort of just getting everybody to do a lunch and learn, so they just sort of just huddle in the boardroom and they'll watch her for 45 minutes. And promise you, there's going to be a really interesting discussion that'll ensue right after. So it's totally free. Definitely sign up for it. I think it's coming up September. When is it coming up?
September 12th.
September 12th is when it's coming up.
I can send a link in the follow-up email after this.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. That sounds great, Joanna. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so if you are a private sector organization, the training is covered through the Canada-Ontario Job Grant. They actually have dollars in the range of $10,000 per employee that is available for training. Usually organizations will buy the training so our training is not $10,000. It's about, I think, $2,500, and if you register 2 or more, it's $2,200. So, but some organizations just double it with the coaching, so they buy additional coaching and what have you, and get the Canada-Ontario Job Grant through us. And we actually have a new PACE funding program, because we realize like it's so accessible to Canada-Ontario Job Grant. We have some good experience with our our government organizations and our nonprofits in terms of, we know they pay on time and things like that. So instead of paying the upfront cost, you can just pay a small upfront cost, and you can pay a monthly fee to be able to pay for your course as well. So there is a little PACE funding program that is available as well. And and our next Productivity Leader training in Sudbury is happening on the 13th and 14th. And in Timmins, we're doing it on the 19th and 20th. So would love to see you guys there. If you're available, come by. If you want to do something in-house, just send us a note. And we're happy to sort of talk about, something custom that we can do for your organization as well. So I promised to keep this short. I'm just under the 30-minute mark. I didn't want to go over that significantly. I'm just going to open up the room for questions and kind of go from there. So I have a question. I would like to learn more about Lean. Yeah, and yes, you're right. The webinar did not have a lot of information about Lean. It was more about the Productivity Leader training. We actually have a couple pre-recorded webinars that speak to Lean, but I think we might do another one with Karen Ross in the near future. But in the follow-up email, Joanna will send you the YouTube channel link, and there's a really cool one about lean leadership that we did with Karen Ross, Crystal Davis, and Leslie. I can't remember Leslie's last name. I think it was Hankler. But the three ladies, that we call them the Lean Ladies, and there's a really cool Lean Leadership webinar that sort of helps you understand a little bit more about Lean. And I think we have some old webinars hanging around as well before our brand change. Is there any more questions, Joanna?
Just someone asking for a button.
Someone asking for a button? Definitely, no problem. We'd send you buttons. If you want the buttons, you gotta write something in that question window now. And there is actually a business case letter if you wanted to go to the training, if you wanted to ask for it. So maybe, Joanna, put that as a note. Just send the link to the business case letter out to them as well.
Okay.
So thank you very much for attending, everybody. Really, really appreciate your time. And I will actually try and connect with all of you next week. Next week is like I'm trying to make phone calls and connect with all of our people who are attending our webinars and clients and potential clients. So they're locking me in a room for 2 to 3 days and just doing that. So I might actually call some of you guys. All right. Thank you so much for attending, and hope you have a great long weekend, actually. It's going to be a great long weekend this weekend. All right. Bye-bye.